The ocean had always called to Clara Monroe, not with a roar, but with a whisper. A soft, persistent pull that had followed her since childhood. Now a 28-year-old marine archaeologist, she was part of an elite research team combing the cold Atlantic waters off the coast of Nova Scotia. It was an overcast morning when she zipped up her dive suit, the sky as gray as the waves beneath, and descended into the deep in search of the unknown. What they were looking for was merely noted in rumors and forgotten ship logs wreckage that might belong to an old passenger liner lost more than a century ago. But what Clara found that morning would reach far beyond rusted iron and sunken treasure. At 120 feet below, visibility blurred with silt and silence. Her torchlight cut through shadows, revealing twisted beams and the collapsed bones of what had once been a grand vessel. As she explored, her hand brushed against a piano coral encrusted, decaying slowly in the pressure of time. Nestled between its iron ribs was something shining faintly. Curious, Clara reached in and pulled out a rusted locket. The metal was worn, but intact. With a gentle twist, she opened it, and found a faded photograph inside. A young man in a Navy officer's uniform, his gaze calm, eyes determined, and etched with a sadness that spoke across time. Behind the photograph, etched into the inner frame, were the initials E.L. Back on the boat, Clara couldn't stop staring at the locket. She cleaned it gently, brushing off years of sea growth, and brought it to Dr. Morgan, the ship's historian. He adjusted his glasses, stared, and froze. "That's Lieutenant Elliot Lancaster," he said finally. "He went down with the Ocean Star in 1912. He was engaged to a woman named Anna Whitmore, but she never boarded. Legend says he left her a letter before the voyage, one that never made it to her hands." That night, Clara lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling. Waves rocked the ship gently, but her heart felt unsettled. As she drifted to sleep, something strange happened. She dreamed vividly, viscerally. In the dream, she stood on the deck of a massive ship, dressed in early 1900s attire. Her hands were gloved, delicate. A man stood before her. It was the same man from the locket, Elliot. He wasn't just a photograph anymore. He smiled at her, eyes filled with an overwhelming emotion. "You found me," he said softly. "Please finish what never began." And then she woke up, gasping, crying, confused. For days, Clara couldn't let go of the feeling. The dream lingered like salt on her skin, so she dove into research. She searched through archives, read logs, examined lost passenger lists. Then, in a forgotten library basement in Halifax, she found them. A stack of water, damaged, unsent letters from Elliot Lancaster to Anna Whitmore. One particular letter was dated just hours before the Ocean Star had departed. The ink was faded, but the words clung desperately to the page. "If fate tears us apart, know this: my heart will wait for you, even if it must lie in the deep." Tears filled Clara's eyes. She didn't know why, but the words struck something deep in her, as if she'd read them before, as if they were meant for her. Unable to explain what she was feeling, Clara found herself at the doorstep of Maya, a spiritual regression therapist. She'd always dismissed reincarnation as fantasy, but now she was willing to try anything. Lying back on the therapy chair, she slowly drifted under hypnosis. And then, it happened. Her voice changed. Tears streamed down her face as she began to speak with a trembling whisper. "Elliot, I begged you not to go. I stood at the station. The letter never came. I waited until my hair turned gray." Maya sat in stunned silence. When the session ended, Clara looked lost in thought. "Was that real?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Did I live this before?" Maya only nodded gently. Clara returned to the ocean the next day, diving again to the wreck. She wanted to find something more anything. This time, she dove alone at dawn, with the locket around her neck and a single flower tucked into her suit, one she planned to leave at the sight. The sea was unusually calm, as if holding its breath. As she approached the shipwreck, she noticed a part of the hull she hadn't seen before. Covered in coral and sand, it looked like a storage compartment. With effort, she pried it open. Inside was a sealed box, still intact. She brought it up carefully. Back on deck, she unlatched the box. Inside was a leather-bound journal. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Page after page, it was filled with Elliot's handwriting. He wrote of his life, his dreams, his fears. But most of all, he wrote of Anna, her kindness, her stubbornness, her laughter. He wrote about how he planned to propose again under the stars, how he'd carry her across the deck and call her his bride. One entry simply read, "Even if this ship sinks, even if I vanish, I believe she'll find me. Even if it takes lifetimes." Clara couldn't breathe. The words weren't just letters, they were memories, hers. In the days that followed, she grew quiet. Focused, she began writing too, recording everything she remembered from the dream, from the journal, from deep within. Her colleagues thought she was grieving for someone she'd never met. But Clara knew the truth. She was finishing a love story that had never gotten its ending. On the final dive of the season, she descended once more. With her, she carried a small wooden box. Inside were the locket, copies of Elliot's letters, and one final note she had written in her own hand. "I remembered. I came back. This time, I won't let love drown." She placed the box beside the piano where the locket had first appeared. Then she paused, closed her eyes, and whispered through the water, "Goodbye, or maybe, see you soon." As she rose toward the surface, a warm current swept past her, and through the murky water, a white feather floated, dancing between beams of sunlight. She reached for it, and it vanished. That night, she stood on the boat's upper deck, wrapped in a blanket, staring up at the stars. A strange sense of peace filled her chest. She felt like someone had finally come home inside her. And then, the wind stilled. Everything around her grew quiet. She turned, and standing at the edge of the ship was a figure, tall, in a dark navy coat. The man from the dream, from the journal, from the locket. He didn't speak. He only looked at her with the deepest love she'd ever seen in a man's eyes. "You remembered," he said softly. She nodded, tears silently slipping down her cheeks. "I waited," he whispered. And then he was gone. The next morning, Clara's team found her asleep on the deck, the locket clutched in her hand, her face calm. She wouldn't speak of what she'd seen, but her eyes sparkled like someone who had finally understood the meaning of forever. In the years that followed, Clara published Elliot's journal and her own story alongside it. The world read about the man who waited in the ocean, and the woman who returned to him across lifetimes, across memories, across the deep. The story touched millions. The shipwreck was designated a global site of eternal love, and Clara, now older, would often walk the shores alone, her heart never heavy, because she knew that some love stories are too powerful to sink. Some souls are meant to find each other, even if it takes lifetimes and oceans.